Before we go any further, I want you guys to check to make sure in your file tree that both of your files are inside the Bootcamp directory. If they are, you should be able to close it, and they should both disappear. If you still see one, that's why you don't have your styles appearing. So both of these need to be inside the Bootcamp directory. Otherwise, when you link this file right here, the style.css file, it won't be able to find it because they won't be in the same directory together. Just a little heads up. Okay. Now, we've started to add some styles to our page, but we need a way to designate where to apply styles to different sections of our page and lay things out in a certain order. Now, there's an HTML tag that I haven't taught you about yet that's actually used all over the internet. If you look at any page on the internet, literally any page, you will see this tag appear pretty much all over the place. Does anyone know what it is? Take a guess. It's the div tag. Div. Just like this. Now, the div tag in my index.html page, I put it on line 6, and it closes itself. Now, div tags are divider tags. They divide the page into different sections. So I'm going to copy this closing tag. I'm actually just going to delete it. And then on line 9, you'll notice, by the way, the second I did that, that now everything is all messed up in my styles. To fix that, I need to put a closing div tag on line 9 and then save this file. And if I refresh it now, things should be back the way they were. Great. Now, interestingly enough, nothing really changes about the page when I put these two tags inside the nest inside the div tag. To indicate that my h1 and my h3 tag are nested inside the div tag, I'm going to press tab here and tab here. So now I can tell that both the h1 and the h3 are inside the div tag. This is cool. Then on line 10, I'm going to make a little space. I'm going to create another div tag, just like that. And I'm going to get rid of the closing div tag, and I'm going to put it right before the pictures. I'm going to put another closing div tag right there. I'm going to give all of these one tab in front of them so they all look indented. And in fact, there's actually an easier way to do that on Cloud 9. Here's a little trick for you. If you highlight a couple lines and then you press Shift Tab, it will move it to the left. And then if you press just Tab, it'll move it all to the right. This is some easy indentation tricks to make your life easier. Shift Tab to move it left, Tab to move it right. This is how I'm going to indent things from now on, just because it's a shortcut that developers use pretty frequently. Now again, if I save this page, you'll notice that when I save it and I refresh it, nothing has really changed. Because divs don't change anything on the page, they just divide the page so that we can style them all differently. So if I go into my style.css page, below the image tag, I create a div selector. Div selector right there. I can now apply styles to all the divs on my page. Let's give them a background color that's different from the background color of my body. What color would you like to put in there? Purple? Purple it is. Ooh! That's some purple color. Now you'll notice, by the way, this is kind of interesting. If we take a look at the whole page, you can see, I'm going to refresh this guy. You can see that my two different divs are both purpley styled. And everything that's nested inside these divs has a purple background. Now let's stop for a second to talk about nesting really quickly. So right here, when we nest this h1 and this h3 inside the div, we're actually specifying exactly what goes inside the div and exactly what style should be applied to it. And we have names for both of these. Back in my index.html page, this div element right here, since both the h1 and the h3 are nested inside the div, we call the div the parent element, and these two the children element, or the child for one of them. That's exactly right. So all of the children inside my parent div element get the styles applied to the div, the background color of purple. Now nesting, you can think of nesting kind of like Russian nesting dolls right here. Now Russian nesting dolls, each Russian nesting doll has a smaller nesting doll inside of it. So this is what nesting means, to put one thing inside of another thing. Now the bigger one is called the parent and the smaller one is called the child. So we'll talk about parent and children elements for HTML pretty frequently. Now, back in my HTML page, I've noticed that both of my divs have the same purple background. But what if I want to apply styles to only one of those divs? That's right, I'm going to have to change up how I structure my div tags. To do that, I'm going to give this div tag an attribute known as class. Class equals, and since this one is my header, I'm going to call it header. And since this div tag contains my content, I'm going to give it an attribute of content. Now, we talked about attributes when I showed you the parts of an HTML element right here. This is the attribute, and you'll notice that this paragraph has a class of intro. Class is used to specify specific styles to different parts of our page. So if I give this div a class of header, I can now apply styles to only the div with a class of header. To do that, and I'm going to save this file, I go into the style page, and I'm actually going to create a new selector. Now, we can't just type out the word header here, because that won't work. If I say color, background color, green, or white, you'll notice that nothing changes. That's because this only refers to a header tag. It would have to look like this, header tag. And those actually do exist, but we're not going to use it here for now. Instead, we're going to use this class div. And we're going to say, since it's a class of header, to specify a class in CSS, you just put a period in front of it. And as soon as I save that, and I save my index.html and refresh this page, now my background for my header is white. Only because the style I gave to the class of header has a background of white. Now, any style I put in the div will still apply here, but I can add additional styling only for the header to have a background color of whatever I want, or actually any properties I want. So if I look at my full page now and I refresh it, now we're starting to see some styles here. But you'll notice something that's kind of ugly. Have you noticed it? What's wrong with this header div? It doesn't extend all the way across the page, and it doesn't extend all the way up the page. It looks a little ugly with all that blue border around it, right? We're going to get rid of that in the next video.